All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here again, talking real music in real time for a couple of real people out there just like you and just like me. So, Ann Wilson, she basically doesn't want to be part of the Heart legacy. What she wants to do is break barriers and break rules, according to a recent article. She does essentially kind of, I don't want to say make fun of her sister, but in how she says it, I think it's pretty condescending. And she says, look, we're getting along great. I'm not feuding. It's a myth. Nancy and I are okay with each other. We just have different ideas for what Heart should be. And we haven't figured out a compromise yet, meaning that there's a stalemate. And we're getting deeper and deeper into 2022. Both of them have decided to go out on the road separately. Nancy Wilson is basically calling her band Nancy Wilson's Heart, which I don't know. Apparently, she can do that. Anne did not protest, and that tells me a couple of things. It tells me, number one, Anne's not that excited about the Heart legacy, and she's going to tell us that shortly. Whereas Nancy knows this band has a great catalog. Fans want to come out and see and hear these songs. By the way, getting lots of mixed opinions about the vocalist that Nancy chose. And she's a strong singer. I guess she was on like American Idol or The Voice or one of those shows. But again, she doesn't really represent the material in the way that maybe those who are going to hear them are expecting. You know, again, it's like when Dennis DeYoung broke from Styx, what did he do? He found someone who could basically be Tommy Shaw. That was August Zadra, who was actually on this show at one point a few weeks back. And my advice to anybody who wants to go out there and call themselves, you know, like Nancy Wilson's Heart, well, you're going to have to find someone who can kind of sing like Ann Wilson in order to pull it off. But I digress. I mean, I should do this for a living, right? I should give advice to people. They won't listen to it, but I could just do it and they would pay me and that would work out great. So again, she says, Nancy and I are okay with each other. But she goes on to say, 50 years on, I still want to break barriers and rules. And this is the condescending part here, and she's more satisfied to ride the LA imaging thing and just do legacy stuff. Okay, well, here's what I would say, right? People, from what I can tell, I think want Heart to do legacy stuff. I've said for a number of years now, they should do the most acoustic, unplugged, organic kind of show that they can, and pull out all of those 70 songs, rework them, and run them up the flagpole with different arrangements or whatever you want to do it. And I bet you people will eat it up. They'll lap it up. You'll get new interest in a band. And by the way, you'll get new interest from people who aren't as familiar with the older stuff that the band did, basically in the 70s, but into the early 80s. And then, you know, during the 80s, Heart successfully reinvented themselves. And some would say, well, they sold out, but there are countless bands. Look at what Chicago did. There are so many bands that just fundamentally changed. And for some, it worked. For others, it didn't work out as well. For Heart, especially with those Ron Nevison albums, it's a home run. It's like a Grand Slam home run. And they were popular both on rock stations and on top 40 stations. So it's kind of weird to argue with success. And it always seems to me like Ann Wilson doesn't care. Right now, she doesn't care. Maybe she was more concerned back in those days, but now she's older. She's thinking, you know, maybe I've got enough money. I don't need to worry about trying to have another successful album. I can just do what I want to do. And that's her approach to things. And is it what the fans want, though? And I'm always of the opinion that musicians should give the fans what they want. They should, because the fans supported you. The fans made you millionaires, right? The fans allowed you to have a lifestyle that the fans themselves don't get to have. So to me, it's kind of perplexing when somebody wants to act like they're all erudite and super creative and I'm for pushing the envelope. You've pushed it around and there's really nowhere else to go. I mean, unless you want to totally become this grungy Seattle band, which I don't think is going to go over with the fans of Heart. I understand, the need to go there. It's, your hometown and you're honoring all these grungy people in your music, basically Anne is. Whereas Nancy, she's doing little tributes to Eddie Van Halen on guitar. That shows you where her heart is, no pun intended, and it shows where Nancy's heart is, again, no pun intended. Look, some of this might still be the leftover, I don't know, because none of this happened prior to this incident where what I call the who let the dogs out incident with Anne's husband and so forth. But Ann Wilson insists, no, they're good. They're on speaking terms. They're negotiating. What are they going to negotiate? If they're going to record new material, and by the way, Anne says, I'm recording songs. I'm not sure if it's going to be a solo thing or a Heart thing. My guess is it'll probably wind up being a solo thing because I think Nancy wants to do the legacy stuff. She wants to record the same way the band might have recorded back in their prime. And there's nothing wrong with that. I wish more bands would do that. Older bands, if you want to make your fan base happy, you don't try to reinvent yourselves at this point because people, they have this great archive of music and they're just going to go back to that archive. The other issue is you're going to get zero radio airplay anyway. You have a slight chance maybe if you could create something like a Barracuda or a Straight On or a Heartless. If you could do something like that again, you never know. Maybe some rock station will play it. Maybe some legacy, going to use that word, adult contemporary station might put it on by mistake, probably. They won't do it on purpose because the corporate overlords are never going to allow older rock bands to get airplay because there's just too much youth and excitement and computer generated fun out there. So why mess it up with somebody who's actually playing their own instruments and singing without auto-tune, right? So in any event, this is a rift, despite what Ann Wilson says. She even says, she uses the term here that it's a real split, she says. So that's a real split between us. So this notion that, maybe on a personal level, they can speak to each other and they're okay, which I don't know why at this stage, because I think Nancy was the bigger person and didn't keep this grudge going because she could have easily, because there was never any apology issued for what happened, 6 years ago, whenever it was. They just sort of settled their differences. That's what I heard. And then now you've got these musical differences, which I think are even harder to overcome because I think, the band should be Heart. They shouldn't be something else. They shouldn't try to reinvent the wheel. They've got, a great vocalist, at least for now, 71 years old, Ann Wilson. I think she can still do it. But how much time is left? And most of the fans who enjoy this music are probably going to have to settle on tribute bands because, again, Nancy's, she's got a singer who's a little out there. She's a great vocalist, but I think she's a little much for the material and not in the same, I guess, family of singers. When you have a singer that just sounds great, but they don't sound anything like the original singer, it's kind of hard to really endorse and say, yeah, this is just what I want to hear. Because again, you've got the karaoke or cover band argument. Go to a club where there's a singer who sounds a little bit more like Ann Wilson and listen to these songs, and you'll get the same benefit. I know there are Heart tribute bands out there, and I'm sure some of them are going to be better, as far as actually representing the material that most fans want to hear. So yes, it's a dilemma. I think part of it is pride. Look, you get older and you're thinking, yeah, we're still viable. We're still creative. We can still put out music. And yes, all of that is true. But I would stick to what worked in the past and not try to invent yourself or reinvent yourself at this late stage. I think that's a foolish idea. And this is why I probably agree with Nancy Wilson that, yes, you've got this catalog, go out there and knock it out of the park and maybe rework it and maybe record a couple of songs that are friendly friendly to the people that supported you all these years, who, again, made you rich and famous. See, they're like stockholders, right? You got to take care of your stockholders, Ann Wilson. Anyway, that's kind of my rambling video on this topic. Don't forget to check out my other channel. If you haven't, it's Hardcore Politics. There's a link on this channel on the banner to that. Also, Patreon, $1 a month. We've had a couple of new patrons this week, and I appreciate that. But we lose some, we pick some up. Each time the first of the month comes about, people are reminded that they're signed up for this. And some of them are like, oh yeah, I'm still supporting that guy. Maybe I should stop. Some people obviously are helping a lot. What happens, it's like a church, all the people do the work in the church and like everybody else sits around and does less work. Well, on this channel, it's a very few number of subscribers that actually do Patreon. So I'm grateful for those subscribers, but $1 a month, if you can do it, is not so much. I know things are tough out there, but hence this is why I still ask for help on the channel, because things are tough out there. So thanks again. And of course, I will see you soon.